Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk to you guys about missing team-ups in Marvel Future Fight. So you may be asking yourself, well, what is Cynicalex talking about? What are team-ups? The team-ups are the bonuses that you see on the right-hand side here that will be active when certain characters are playing together. So in this case, Spider-Man and Wolverine have a lot of team-ups together in the comics, so Marvel decided to give them a team-up called Time Traveling Partners. It gives them some bonuses. We're not going to discuss the bonuses today, but we are just going to discuss the synergy that these two characters can cause together. And so you can go into team bonus per character, and you can take a look at all of the different characters and what bonuses they have with different characters, either in a group of 3 or in a group of 2. So now that we know what team-ups are, I want to discuss the top team-ups that I think are missing from the game that include iconic characters and their kind of meetups or working together or against each other in comics, and also highlight certain characters that really don't have many team-ups at all and do in fact need a lot more team-ups to kind of balance it out, because a lot of other characters like Iron Man, Captain America have tons. Keep in mind that although a lot of these do come from the comics, I don't want to spoil the origins too much, so I don't want to go into major details. In addition, there are some that are movie only, so we will be talking also exclusively about the MCU. So the first one up is Ant-Man and Spider-Man, and I would dub this one AT-AT. And if you've seen Civil War, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think this would be a pretty cute team-up, and I for one would like to use those speedsters together. The next one that I thought of that's probably the biggest one in my mind that needs to be put into the game, and probably the one that inspired me to make this video, is Captain America and Red Skull. Arch enemies, you know, representing two sides of kind of good versus evil, which is probably what I would name the team up, or you could call it Axis versus Allies to reference the World War II stuff, but it would be kind of a shame if we don't get that soon, if not already. Next up I have Squirrel Girl, Red Hulk, and War Machine. This one is US Avengers. Now the War Machine one doesn't really fit, but he does have the Iron Patriot outfit or uniform, which does make him fit into that you know, triangle there. Next up I got Wolverine and Mysterio, and if you've read Old Man Logan, I will make reference to it a few more times before the end of this video. One of my favorite kind of one-off comic series that I've ever read, and I would probably dub this team up Nightmares, but there's a couple of other great names for how they interacted in that series. You should definitely check it out. Next one up, we have another one with Wolverine, although he does have a lot of team-ups already. This time it's Wolverine and Punisher, and I would call this one Anti-Heroes. I was also tempted to put in Wolverine, Punisher, and Ghost Rider because of their kind of Heart of Darkness adventures, but I didn't. Next up, we got Angela and Thor, and Angela doesn't have too many team-ups, and she doesn't have one with her long-lost brother, Thor, so I would definitely call this team-up Lost Sister. We also have Bullseye and Elektra. This one is very confusing why they don't have a team-up. Some very iconic moments between these two characters. I would probably name this team-up Deadly Size if it were up to me. Clea is another character who I have gone through and seen that is really missing any kind of meaningful team-ups. Of course, she has the ones from the comics that are obviously very iconic with Doctor Strange and, you know, Dormammu and stuff like that. But she could have one with Thor and Loki. And if you're not familiar with what happens there, it's kind of an alternate universe situation, but she betrays Doctor Strange. It's quite interesting, and I would call that one Strange Betrayal for that reason. Another one with Clea that I would like to see would be with Misty Knight, going back to the Fearless Defenders run that she did and that she, you know, briefly participated in. Both her and Misty Knight could use a few more team-ups. Then we have Drax and Mantis. This one is from the MCU, and I would call this one Beautiful on the Inside, and I think a lot of people would get a kick out of that team-up. Green Goblin and Spider-Man is another one like Captain America and Red Skull that I just don't understand why it's not in the game. They're essentially arch nemesises. They're kind of the yin and yang of that universe, and so I would call them probably familiar foes, because the Green Goblin has always kind of known that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Next up, we got Hawkeye and Black Widow. This is another biggie. A lot of people have told me in the chat before, why is this not a team up? I would call this one Budapest from the MCU and from a couple of other references. But I think this one is sorely needed in addition to a Hawkeye rework. Additionally, I would also put Hawkeye up there with Wolverine. And I would call this one Old Man or Grumpy Old Man, or you can think of a couple other references to something I've already mentioned. Next up, we got Hulkbuster and Iron Man, and I would call this one Veronica. I mean, Hulkbuster is essentially not a real thing, it's just a suit of armor, so definitely having reference to who made the suit of armor makes sense with a team-up bonus, and it would give Hulkbuster some much-needed team-up bonuses. Then we have one here, Kate Bishop and Ironheart. This one I can't find much reference to in the comics, but I haven't been keeping up too much with the Marvel Now stuff. But they are the spiritual successors to Hawkeye and Iron Man. So I think they kind of deserve it. And they came together as a package with that update along with a couple of other characters. So it makes sense. Next up we have Caecilius and Doctor Strange. This one I would call Mr. Doctor, and that would just purely be for fun and for shits and giggles, referring to their interaction in the MCU. Then we got Kingpin and Spider-Man, pretty often at odds with one another. I would probably call this one Bug Squeeze, just for how many times, at least in the animated series, Kingpin would grab Spider-Man and just try to crush the life out of him. Next up, we have a few from my boy MODOK. And I know Night Nurse, if you're watching, you're going to dig this one. MODOK plus Angela. If you haven't read this comic, you definitely should. It's quite hilarious. I would call this Deadly Attraction. And from the title alone of the team up, you should know it gets a bit freaky between the Asgardian and MODOK. Then we have MODOK and Beast, and this is one from a pretty famous run where Scarlet Witch basically decides to kill mutants, and I would call this one Endangered Species, aptly titled. Then we have MODOK and Cho, Amadeus the Hulk, and I would call this one Return to Human Form because he found a way to transform MODOK back into his human form if he didn't know that he wasn't actually a giant floating head. Literally. Then we have Mockingbird and Spider-Man. Mockingbird is another character that's quite interesting for me because her team-ups have a lot of threes, but she has no two-person team-up. So there is no single team-up with just Mockingbird and one other character, so I decided to give her some. Mockingbird plus Spider-Man, they've had quite a few run-ins, but I would probably go with just Bird and Spider because Netmarble likes to, reference these animals behind names, which I think is pretty funny. And then I would definitely give Mockingbird one with Hawkeye because they have a pretty long history. They're married, divorced, girlfriend, boyfriend, etc. And I would call this one WCA, or World Counterterrorism Agency. The second one's kind of long, so I would just leave it to WCA or WCA Agents or something like that. Then we have Red Skull, Hulk, and Kingpin. And this one is a little bit more obscure. This one I want to personally see. It doesn't need to be in the game because it just references Old Man Logan one more time. But I would call this one New U.S. Presidents. Then we have Sister Grimm. Sister Grimm doesn't have too many team-ups, but she's a pretty beloved character, so I think we need to give her a few more from the comics. So I would give her one with Elsa and Captain Marvel, and I would call that one Bugs. That's a pretty obscure reference if you're not a huge Sister Grimm fan. And then I would give her another one with Hellstorm, and I would call that one Harness Your Power. Damien does some tutelage. Finally, we come to Ultron. Ultron is another character that I think deserves more team-ups, deserves more singular team-ups with just one other character, also deserves a rework. A lot of the characters on this list need a rework, actually. So the first one would definitely be Ultron and Giant Man, and I would definitely call that one Pimtron. If we don't get a uniform, we can at least get a team-up, or a new character for that matter. And the last one would be Ultron and Vision. And there's definitely a few names you can give this team-up. I would go with Synthezoid, but there's definitely a few that, work for this one in different ways. Finally, guys, I wanted to hit you up with a team up that's in the game now that I don't understand. It's a bit perplexing to me. And for this one, we have to go with one of our favorite Resident Dead memes. Hulkling has a team up at the bottom here with Hulk entitled Hulks. Now, the reason why I pick on this one is because, although I may have said this in the past, Hulkling is not a Hulk. He's half Kree, he's half Skrull, and he's 0% Hulk. I know he has that iconic skin color, but that's where the comparison and the similarities end. So I'm a little bit confused as to what Netmarble was doing here, if they were intentionally trying to confuse us or what. But it is a bit contrasting to see that they'll put in irrelevant team-ups and they'll still miss out on the really, really big ones. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this missing team-up discussion and kind of theory crafting as far as what future team-ups we could see that should be in the game that aren't. Let me know which ones I missed, because there's definitely a few more iconic ones that I couldn't cover because of time and that you guys are going to mention in the comments. So hit me up down below. Let me know what your favorite one is that's missing, and maybe what your favorite one is that's in the game currently and why. And of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.